Good morning, welcome to Iridium Rock and Metal Reviews. Today I'm going to be doing ranking the year 1995. So I'm sure you know the score by now if you've been watching my videos. These are my favourites from the year and I rank them in order of my top ones. I'll go, in this one there's 5 albums. Not such a good year, 1995, in my opinion, obviously. And it goes from my least favourite of my favourites to my number one album of that year, and I'll give my ranking as well, a score out of 10. I'll do some honourable mentions at the end as well, but of course, as always, I encourage any comments, anything that you think should have been included. Some of your, if it's your top album or your top 5, whatever it is, let me know. And I've been listening to some new music as well, because a couple of listeners now, so it's great. We all win. So there you go. 1995. So number 5, Iced Earth, Burnt Offerings. Now these haven't been included yet in my rankings. I didn't mind a couple of earlier efforts, but this is where they started to get a bit better for me. They're a little bit thrashy, Iced Earth. You've probably heard them anyway. A bit of a Maiden influence, but a lot heavier. And this was their darkest album, without a doubt. I mean, it's well known as their darkest album. It definitely is. John Schaffer, which I hope I pronounced that right. He's a guitarist and songwriter. He's the mainstay of the band, and he's definitely got a different way of, you can definitely tell it's Iced Earth, even when I think they've had 3 or 4 different singers, but whenever you hear the music, you can tell he's got a way about the way he writes songs. He's right clever songwriter, brilliant. And I think I was a bit of a latecomer anyway to Iced Earth. I got into them when they brought out The Glorious Burden. Then I left them again for a while, and now I've got back into them again and started listening. So some of this stuff is quite relatively new to me, listening to it, but good album, Burnt Offerings, really good. Some of the standout tracks for me: Last December, Dante's Inferno is a good one. Dante's Inferno is obviously the epic, I think it's 16, nearly 17 minutes long track, but they're not well known for their epic songwriting, so yeah, really good. I'd give Iced Earth, Burnt Offerings 7 out of 10. Right, my number 4, Deftones Adrenaline. Love Deftones. I've loved them since this album, which was their debut. They have been categorised into the new metal category. I don't know so much, because those bands drifted away, probably apart from Korn. But this is my favourite band of that sort of category, if you like. I don't really see them as new metal. I don't like, I say, putting them in categories, but that's I suppose it's about when they actually brought their music out, was in those times, and they were just put into that category, I suppose. But this wasn't their best work, but it was still good. And I think Bored was the first song I heard of theirs, as their first single, and it sort of like gripped me, and I saw it on the TV and I thought, wow, it might have been in the Headbangers Ball or something, I don't know, but when I first heard that, I thought, wow, this is something special, this band. Also some other ones on here is 1 Week, Birthmark is another good one. And this is one of those bands, because of the singer, and that's Chino Marino, because of his voice, it's unmistakable. You might not say he's got the most technically brilliant voice, but he's still got a really strong voice. But whenever you hear a Deftones song, it's unmistakable, and you know it's him. So I really like that when you can have a singer that you can just name a band straight away when you hear him. He's got like a whispery sort of voice, and then he's got so many elements to it as well. Absolutely fantastic. So yeah, really strong album this, and I'll give Deftones Adrenaline 7 out of 10. Right, my number 3, Mad Season, Above. This was the only album that Mad Season did, the only studio album as far as I know. I don't think they've done any live stuff, like album wise. I'm not sure, might want to correct me on that, but this is a collaboration between Lane Staley, Mike McCready from Pearl Jam, and a couple of other guys in the grunge era, if you like. and really strong vocal performance by Lane Staley here. We all know what a brilliant voice he had anyway, and this was a really good performance. And you know what? It's this same year the Alice in Chains album came out as well, the Tripod album, and his vocals on this are so much better than on there. For me, I just think this is how he sounded when the band first come out and through Facelift and Dirt. Really strong by Lane on here, but you know it's a bit of a surprise because you know, like I said about his vocal performance on the Tripod album, so different. But you know, with his drug problems, maybe it changes from one week to the next. You know, it's a bit unpredictable how your voice is going to be. But there's no doubt about it. It's strong on here. But for me, it might be just be Lane's voice, but whenever I hear this, it's definitely veers more towards Alice in Chains than it does to Pearl Jam. That's just for me. But it's probably his distinctive voice making me think that. Some real quality songs on here. River of Deceit's a good one. I like the slower ones. Long Gone Day as well. Brilliant. Lifeless Dead was a good one on here. More of a heavier track. But really good album. Really strong. And I'll give Mad Season above 7.5 out of 10. Not my next one. Number 2. Alice in Chains, the Tripod album. Well, I've just mentioned that. I know I said his voice wasn't so good, but overall musically I prefer Alice in Chains over Mad Season. So let's talk about the production. For me, it wasn't the best. They was probably going for something a bit different. There's nothing wrong with that, be experimental. But the clarity you hear on Dirt and even on Facelift is so superior, the production on this one, on those two, than the Alice in Chains album. I can't help thinking this would be, in my opinion, so much better if it was a similar production. I think one of the standout things about Alice in Chains, obviously apart from Jerry Cantrell songwriting, is Lane's voice. And for me, it wasn't brought to the forefront on this. He could have been going through some problems, and I don't know. But the production didn't help it at all. The harmonies weren't quite so precise on this one with Jerry, but I think a lot of it's to do with, really do think it's to do with the production. But there are some really good tracks, obviously, on this. It's my number 2 album as well, so on that year. So Grind was one of the heaviest tracks Alice in Chains ever did. Goddamn is an absolute masterclass of a song. Loved it. Sludge Factory. I really like the song. Not so keen on the ending of it. I think that's what a difference with this album than Dirt. I think some of that experimental stuff on here, more like a sort of, the ending of that song is more like a jam session than anything else. I think with Dirt, it was straight to the point, 3, 4, 5 minute songs, bang, straight at you. This had like some other stuff on the album, like, apart from Sludge Factory, like jamming sessions. It just didn't sound as tight to me as the Dirt album, but it's still good. A still good album, still a strong album. And I think you're just trying to compare it to Dirt. That's probably my problem, because Dirt's one of my favourite albums of all time. I think when you're trying to compare it to that, there is no comparison for hardly any album to compare to Dirt. So I suppose as it's Alice in Chains, you can't help it. You've got to compare it. But still strong. Alice in Chains, the Tripod album, 8 out of 10. It comes to my number 1. And it's Down and NOLA. If anyone don't know, I'm sure they do anyway. NOLA stands for New Orleans, Louisiana. Now this is Phil Anselmo from Pantera. He's a bit of a super group yet again. Guy from Crowbar, Corrosion of Conformity, I believe. Yep, definitely. And this was, for me, I mentioned it on my, I think it was last year's video or the year before, when Far Beyond Driven came out. I really do like Pantera, but I prefer Down. I prefer that band. And I think I know what it is. I love southern metal, or southern heavy rock music. Lynyrd Skynyrd, early Blackstone Cherry stuff. There's a band called Blackberry Smoke, if you haven't heard them. They're obviously more country southern rock than Down. Down a lot heavier, but I love that that southern sound. I absolutely love it. And this was probably their best album, although they brought out a lot of other good stuff after this as well. And this was full up. This is one of them albums again, top to bottom, from track one to the last track. Every song was good. You know, not a skippable song on here. Lifer, Rehab, Howl the Leaf, excellent. Losing All, Stone the Crow, what a brilliant song that is, and that had a real southern feel to it. That's probably why I love that so much. Bury Me in Smoke, what a absolute class song to close out the album with. So yeah, brilliant, excellent from Phil Anselmo and the crew. So loved this album, absolutely loved it. If you haven't heard it, and I'm sure you all have, listen to it now. Brilliant. Right, I'll give that obviously 10 out of 10 without a doubt. Right, so my honourable mentions, there's a few here. This, I wasn't so keen on this band, but I like his side project. Well, it's not really his side project, it's his main band now, but Ed Guy Savage Poetry band, Ed Guy band. Yeah, I like this album, but like I said, I prefer Avantasia a lot more than this. But you know, that's just my opinion. Iron Maiden brought out the X Factor with Blaze Bayley on vocals. You know what, it's just because it's probably Maiden, and I prefer Bruce Dickinson and even Paul Di'Anno to Blaze Bayley, but it was a good effort, this. You can hear some stuff on this album that was definitely influenced some of the later stuff as well. But I don't know, I just don't think his voice fits in with Maiden. You know, I think you've got to look at this as a separate album. Sometimes it's hard. Ozzy brought out one of his best albums for me, Osmosis. I think this was a really good album, especially the first half of it was really strong. It gets a bit of stick, this one, a bit underrated, this one. A lot of people think this ain't good, this album, but it's definitely one of his better albums, Ozzy's. Sabotage, they've been bringing out quite a few albums over these last couple of years, and it's Dead Winter Dead. Bit of a different style. They brought in an orchestra, I believe, for this album. I still like it. It's good, but I did prefer some of their earlier stuff. But it's still a really good album. And you can understand why Sabotage fans, you know what I mean, they go mad over this band, and you can understand why. They're totally different than a lot of stuff you've heard. But yeah, that was a good album. And Xeno, don't know if anyone's heard of them, but they're like a melodic rock AOR band, if you like. Xenology came out in this year. Wasn't as good as their debut. Their debut was a absolute masterpiece. If any of you guys haven't heard Xeno's debut album called Xeno, listen to it now. If you like a bit of melodic 80s stuff, absolutely brilliant. But this was not so good. Didn't make it into my top 5. Yeah, the debut album definitely would have done, but not quite on this one. So yeah, that's the end of my ranking 1995. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a separate video, but I'm going to call out for some for me to do some reactions to songs, not albums but songs, as long as copyright is okay when I upload them, and I can get away with that. I'm going to do some reactions to songs I might not have heard, so get your thinking caps on. You've obviously heard some of the stuff that I like over the years, so if there's anything you think I missed out, I haven't heard, I'm going to do some reactions. I'm also going to do some album reviews, so if you want to put an album review up, something I have heard or something I can listen to, I'll do that as well. I'm going to try and mix it up a bit on the channel. So please subscribe down to the right hand side of this screen. You can see it down there, subscribe button, and I'll be bringing out plenty more material. Cheers, thank you very much.